Glory to God, you can be seated. We have two seminars, right? So we can do like this right now. If you're tired a little bit, I can give you 30 minutes break, unless we can just continue with the new topic and then take a break before the final stage.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is that okay to everyone?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope it takes about 1 hour and then we'll take a break. Okay, and you can drink coffee, tea, walk around, push your button if you need, okay? Okay, give me a couple of seconds. I pull this up for you and we start from there. Okay. Let me bring this up. Okay. And it's supposed to be good. Okay. So, on this topic, okay, so we talk about a couple of things today, okay? This topic says Christian music ministers today. And as the music people, who does music here? Raise your hand. If you do play piano or sing at church or do lots of things that deals with music, anybody? Plenty, right? Okay, good job. Okay, so that's good for you, by the way. As you know, if you deal with music, you're good with math. Did you know that? You're supposed to. You're supposed to. So those people who actually plays any instrument or sings, they're really good with that. So please encourage your friends, go to play instruments, sing at church more actively, you'll be blessed on that. Okay, so we'll talk about Christian music ministers today. Okay, let's go. Number one, why this topic is important today. Why is it a big deal to talk about today? Second thing, music ministers' position at church. That's also a big deal. In what location, where we are in face of God or before the God at church, what our position. Number three, music ministers' challenges as well as music ministry development. How to develop your music ministry, how to make it better. I would have more people in here today, but probably not everybody thought this topic was relevant, however it is. Okay, so why this topic is important today? Number one, music can get people together, right? Not as much as preaching, which is supposed to be, but often the music itself get people together and can unify people as a one team, right? So that's why we need to talk about Christian music ministers today. Because you, as the musical person at church, you're supposed to be a model of that proper Christian ministers that brings good stuff at church and on stage. Even you're singing in choir or you're in a worship group or stuff like that. So sometimes our church leaders cannot give us proper answers because they mostly focus on the spiritual life, right? And they're already busy with other stuff. They have multiple things to do to serve the community and serve the people in the church. That's why lack of answers often leads us in the wrong path. That's why many young musicians brought into church really bad stuff. Third thing, why this topic is important, we have to react on the time properly. Time changes. Some people were telling to me, why don't we can still sing old hymns? Somebody saying instead, no, we should sing new songs because, why? Because it's a new time. Why we have to sing those old songs? That's so boring. Did you hear about that a lot? Oh yeah, it's a constant battle in churches nowadays. However, as the young generation, we forget that there are lots of good old songs that actually leads you to repentance, right? To love the God, to love the people, to sacrifice everything in your life for God. There are definitely lots of bad songs in old music, right? We're not singing, how many, maybe like 20, 30,000 of songs that Christians has written. We're not singing all of them, right? Probably max 200, 300 songs only, max, right? So probably we can call this trashy songs, right? Because we're not singing them. They might not necessarily bad, but we're not doing them. Same thing in the modern music. There are some songs that are really good, and lots of trash songs that we'll never sing it again, right? So you have to consider that things. Also, you have to know the needs and feelings and problems of musical people in order to help them better. I wish all the churches be sitting here right now and listening to them. Because when you serve as a musician, you're facing lots of stuff in church. Not always people will say hello to you. They will not always understand your thoughts, your struggles, your problems. You're trying to kind of make this musical ministry better. But they're telling you all the time, stop, enough, no more, stuff like that. It's a constant battle. One of the famous English Baptist preachers, Charles Spurgeon, he was saying that his musicians and singers are his military minister, like military department, I would rather translate on that. So musical people actually leave the surface. Somebody was arguing to me and saying, when somebody preaches a God word, that's the number one. Music is the second. I'm telling you, sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes you better listen to the music that leads you to repentance than you listen to somebody who preaches and sometimes unprepared and not ready. Does that make sense? So definitely those preachers are supposed to be really ready, prepared. They need to pray before Sunday every single day. God, give me your word. I need to reach the hearts of these people and everything. So it's on the same level, music with lyrics and preaching. So it's all supposed to lead us to thinking about God, right? About His work in our life. Okay, I want to bring to you a couple of Bible verses. 1 Chronicles 9:33. What did musicians do in Hebrews temple? And these are the singers, chief of the fathers of the Levites, who remaining in the chambers were free, for they were employed in that work day and night. I mean, definitely nowadays we don't have that much time, right? To stay at church, practice our singing skills, know our instruments better, right? Get choir. I wish to have choir people all the time and sing all the time, develop themselves up to the highest level on the earth. But that's impossible. We have jobs, we have issues, we have kids. You have get probably to life at some point, so you have lots of free time. I hope you value that and use your time properly. But when you get married, get kids, get stuff, business, it gets pretty busy, so there's not that much time. So the role of musicians at church is really huge, actually. I want to support you on that path. You need to try hard. So even in Israel, ancient Israel, the role of Levites was huge. They led the worship. They dedicated all their life. So at least nowadays, if you sing in a church, or you're in orchestra, or you're in a worship group, please don't forget your dedication to Christ. One more. I'll read this in Russian for those, okay? Ахинания, начальник левитов, был учителем пения, потому что был искусен в нем. In old ancient Israel, they did have music teachers. They did have singers who actually taught all other ones how to properly sing. Because God deserves, I hope you agree with me, the best worship ever. The thing is, with modern singing and contemporary worship kind of a thing, it's turned out to the way when the music idolized and music actually was lifted to the highest level, but not to God. Do you see the difference? It was a good path, I agree with that. Let's do quality music for God. Let's do better than Hollywood. Let's do better than Broadway. But everything turns out in a different way. In the wrong way. So what's the Bible says about this? Let's talk about this. And whatsoever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not unto man. Colossians 3:23. So everything you do as a musician, make sure you get connected to the God. Make sure God gives you knowledge. Ask Him for that. Don't just come here on stage and be unprepared when you perform on Friday evening service or Sunday morning service. You have to spiritually be prepared. You have to pray about this. That's really important. Your spiritual condition will either support the community and encourage them to be closer to God, or distract everybody from God. A couple more things I will translate it. Everything starts with me as a musical minister. If I'm not dedicated enough, if I do not see the goal, if I do not try hard spiritually and practically, then I lose in that battle with Satan. My spiritual, emotional, and physical condition affects those to whom I serve. And I'm telling you, by leading choir for the last 12 years, it was not easy. A few days I just came there just to be there. I'm honest with you. Just to be there. Okay? I didn't have any fire in my soul to continue. I was just thinking, okay, I want to quit. I'm done with it. No more choir. I want to do something else. Let's do a different path. Let's be a truck driver. And I almost passed the driving test. 2017. Okay? So it was a really big deal in my life. Big change, right? To be like on one path of your life and change it to the truck driver. Okay? Finishing my master's degree in driving truck. Can't imagine that. Okay. Maybe one day, maybe if God says that. Maybe, I don't know. I hope not. So that's why I'm traveling around churches nowadays and talk to them. Be very honest and open and saying stuff like this. Reminding people, please refresh the brain. Rethink your standards. Come back to the God standards. What are the problem of music ministers today, or music people? Let me refer to music people rather, okay? Number one, lack of spiritual development. We focus often on other stuff, but we forget about our soul. We pray maybe once a week, right? Yes? Everybody admit it? Or just read Bible once a week or once a month. That's ridiculously bad. That's what happens to Christianity nowadays when people forget about reading Bible. Or they read, but they never understood it. It's just like closed book for them, right? They're blinded. That's what we do sometimes as musicians. We do loud music. We're obsessed with it, but we never get into connection with the God to know what He wants from us to do. Number two, lack of praying, preparation, and fasting. Who fasting today? Anybody? Did anybody try it? Raise your hand. That's good. At this couple of people, that's an amazing tool. Sometimes we're trying to talk to church pastors and explain to them, okay, we need drum set in here. Please, let us buy one. We need to do, how do you call that instrument, like a box, cajon? Okay, we need that thing in here because it will give you just a basic beat. There is nothing, I will not do solo on it. No. But for church leaders, it's hard to understand that. So why don't you feast first? Do fasting first. Yeah, just switch the word, sorry, my bad. And then you pray for that for a week or so. Then you come back to your church pastor and say, okay, are you ready for drum set? You know what I mean? So you have to do some preparation before you hop in and say, okay, let's do that. Okay? There's supposed to be a way. Okay, next one. Lack of accountability. Okay, tell me, be super honest. If you're a musician at church or church leader, do you like to be accountable to somebody? Or have somebody to come and tell you, okay, you should not sing that song, you should not play like that, you should not do this, do just these songs. I want to hear only that. Do you like it or not? Be honest. Probably what? Right? You don't like when somebody comes to you and tells you what to sing. However, that's a big thing at church. We have a subordination, right? We need to have it. So as a musician, you need to have somebody who comes and tells you, okay, that's the proper way. No, you shouldn't do this one, so rethink this idea. Maybe try another way. Lack of accountability. Nowadays, if church pastors do not hold accountable their musicians, then the opposite thing happens, right? Musicians will leave the church. That's what happens in many churches, actually, right? So it's their role, and our role as the musicians to keep this in mind and not overcome their power and their status. Does that make sense? So be careful with that. Okay. Couple of other things. Lack of knowledge about new trends. Sometimes we do sing Hillsong music in our churches, and we're not even recognizing that we do. Though, do you know that Hillsong music, if you use Hillsong music at your church, you have to pay royalties. You know what our royalties are, right? Do you? Fees. If you're using that music, you have to pay money, big money. The copyright law. So that's how they've got their billions and billions of dollars. That's why they're so rich. When I do write a song, I give it for free, right? But they make money using church. Amazing business, isn't it? Amazing business, huge money. Another thing, so study and know what you're singing, what style, what culture is that. Maybe you're bringing actual Hillsong culture into the church. And if you have questions about that, I have a couple of things for you to share with you about Hillsong culture. So really interesting. I hope you will be shocked at some point, okay? I hope you do. Okay, one style of songs in a church worship. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Anybody? Is that accommodates needs of all church community? No, not at all. So if we have 50-50, young people 50% at church and 50% older people or middle-aged people, we need to accommodate each other, right? Get a couple of songs that actually touches or touch heart of young people, and standard classical songs that touch heart of older people. I'm telling you, the modern worship doesn't touch me a whole lot. I don't know why. I try to get into it, like really hard, listen to that, try to understand the lyrics, the music. It's so simple for me. It's so simple and repetitive that like after 10 minutes of listening such and such songs, you know song Days of Elijah, do you? It's a famous one. After maybe like, I remember that song probably, but everything else kind of like goes away from out of my mind. Like 10 minutes after singing that song, I'm not remember a word. Do I have great memory? I'm telling you, I have great memory. Is there something wrong with it? This song won't touch my heart at all. So that's why in church we need to have 50-50 balance, right? A couple of modern songs, be aware of what are these songs are and came from. And some of the songs are hymns because they do have that culture of good classical traditions. Okay. A lack of collective worship. Do you feel like that's a problem in church right now? Lack of collective worship together as a whole community? Or there is no problem with that? What's your thoughts on that? Do you feel like in your churches everybody's singing together, nobody's standing for nothing? You feel like everybody's singing? Yes? What do you think? Shake your head if you feel like it. Yeah, maybe? Yes? Okay. What I've noticed in big churches like 2,000 people church, what I've noticed that the worship group does such a great job, better than Hollywood, all by memory, nice dresses, costumes and everything, but nobody's singing among the audience because they're watching that worship group doing a great job. We have a cool concert in here, but nobody's singing. They're barely mumbling the words, and these are thousands of people. And the point of Satan, I always think about that. I'm for worship groups. I'm for them. But there is always temptation to get rid of singing together, right? When we sing together as a whole community or church, we get together in the idea of serving God. Does that make sense? We're all together. And Satan hates when people sing together. He doesn't like that. He needs us shut up our mouths and just don't sing. Let group professional people do that for us. And that's the point of his work. Okay. Also, people on the console and computer. For music ministers, there's always a problem, as far as my experience for many years. So those people who serve at the computer or make sure they move sound up or down, they're always supposed to be a good way of communication with those people. Those people also need to learn how to properly turn on computer screen, projector, sound, and everything. You need to teach as many people as possible to get them more on the professional way so they can be aware of, does that make sense? It's a really big deal. Those people are really important in church. So musicians, I really encourage you to get in touch with those people. Be friends with them. Okay? They can help you move your mic sound up when you need it. Okay? Just with one sign. By the way, agree on the sign. I hope you're not doing that because they're supposed to already listen to that. If something wrong, they're supposed to move it up, right? A bit, right? To fix the sound. Often it happens in the opposite way, so you barely heard. Yeah.
People that work on the sound system, they also have to have some kind of education in music.
I agree with you. Yes.
To understand
yes.
the sound and everything.
I have a really good department at UCM here at Warrensburg. They do have really good music department, and they teach people how to be musical technicians. This job is extremely valuable today. It involves big money, honestly. So I can feel it to you. So it's a big, really cool industry. You set up the sound, the mics, all the sound systems, softwares, and stuff like that. Definitely, I agree with you. They need to have some sort of musical education to know how the sound works, how the echo works, right? That's why we have some sort of things on the side of each wall sometimes in churches to eliminate the bad sound or make better sound, or we build our roofs and stuff like that, or dome shape, right? Some of that. So, yeah, it's a big deal. Those people are really important, and we need to teach them how to also properly listen, not only click the slides, right, or stuff like that. Okay, next one. Lack of instruments and musicians at church. Did you notice that there is an issue nowadays with lack of musicians and instruments? We have only piano and drums, or piano and guitar. Do you feel that? Why do you think this problem exists? Are we in it? We are in charge of that? Or we were lazy at some point in our life, didn't learn anything, or we were getting to catch the dollar rather than learn how to play an instrument, to be honest? Did we in charge of that? Ask yourself. So, one of the churches in Massachusetts, I think it was Massachusetts, Springfield, I believe, I was there last year. They actually prohibited any instrumental at church. It's a big one, more than 1,000 church, 1,000 people. They said no instrumentals at all. We do encourage you young people to go to and learn instruments, and I'm telling you, in 10 years, they've got 2 orchestras. Lots of people playing cellos, double bass, timpani, big drums, Ukrainian, a huge one, playing saxophones, violin, cellos, many instruments. It changed the culture of the church performance. I was on their meeting. All the Slavic community pastors came to that meeting as well. It was like more than 200 people with their wives. Everybody came. Actually, really interesting. I was listening to that orchestra. It was so gorgeous. And none of the rap songs even compares to that stuff. This music actually lifts you up, and you feel that. I was just standing, opening my mouth, and just listening to the orchestra. I said, glory to God. That's perfect. So think about this. If you will have kids, when you get married, encourage them to do that stuff. You never know. Maybe you'll have better artists than Michael Jackson. Your son will be better than Michael Jackson playing on piano at church, serving God, traveling places, and teaching other ones how to properly serve God. Okay, lack of music gatherings. Do anybody heard about that? Music gatherings, like music festivals at church. Anybody heard about that? Yes? You heard? Okay. We're lacking those things. Maybe we'll do this here in Sedalia. It's going to be really interesting when maybe in any other churches. But we get choirs here, orchestras, worship groups, individual soul, like a musical evening for 1 or 2 hours when we're serving to the God, not doing contemporary movement music. You know what I mean? Like something that will encourage people, lift them up. Will be a really interesting idea. Think about that. Maybe your church one day will do that. So we need those musical people get together as often as possible to check, are we in the right path to the God, or are we already into the contemporary Christian music, kind of music? So be careful about that. Okay, development of musical ministry. Let's talk about this. How do you develop your musical ministry? But before, I'll read one verse for you. Malachi 1:7. You offer polluted bread upon mine altar, and you say, wherein have we polluted thee? And that you say, the table of the Lord is, what's the word? Yes. That's really important. As the musicians, we cannot bring polluted bread or trashy music or cheap music to church service. And the point of contemporary music to simplify everything. And most of the people on earth, they do like simple music, simple beat. Nothing hard. You don't have to think super hard about stuff. Just glorify God, and that's the only thing you do. No. The music and the lyrics together are supposed to elevate you to the higher level of thinking. Critical thinking, not just blank thinking. Okay, a couple of more things. Malachi 1:8. And you offer the blind for sacrifice, it is not evil. And if you offer the lame and sick, it is not evil. He is questioning. Offer it now unto your governor. Will he be pleased with you or accept thy person? Do you get it what I'm reading? As we serve unto God, we need to try to bring quality product. Yes, definitely. But don't forget about spiritual preparation. Yes, you're trying to play harder, you apply many hours into music, you're singing or you're playing, but don't forget about spiritual aspect. Ask God, is that proper way? Is it a good piece of music? Am I really put you, Jesus, on front and me standing behind you? Okay, a couple of things. How do you resolve the issues as a music ministers or a music person at church? Number one, and I was teaching this as well for choir directors before, like orchestra directors. So regular meetings at church. I would encourage you, and we'll have one of those meetings in our church, I think. Is that tomorrow? Somebody help me out. I think tomorrow, right? We have no church meeting, service in my church, so we'll get all the music servants, if I would say that, okay, tomorrow, so at 5, so be ready. Who came from my church, so we have that. Do your music ministers at your church gather together? How often you get together? I would suggest you have some sort of committee, musical committee at your church, and get pastor or musical pastor, get choir director, orchestra, 2 people from choir, 2 people from orchestra, 2 people from the worship group, to have a committee and to know what's happening among musical people at church. Do you really need that? I think that's a great idea. When you get to your church tonight, call to your pastor and tell them, okay, how about if you form some sort of musical committee? Call pastor into that committee and have a conversation. Maybe you have any issues, maybe he has any questions. I was about to say she, no. If he has any questions to you. Okay. Regular contacts with other music or other musicians. Do you communicate to other musicians, guys? As a church musicians, you have to do that. Don't just stick with your own church culture. Ask what's happening around the world. Maybe you can get any ideas. Like, me as a teacher, I'm often go around and ask other teachers for ideas. Okay, teachers are the best or the greatest thieves or stealers, right? Because we steal ideas from each other, right? And to make our class better. Okay. Also, ability to find common ground. Isn't it hard nowadays to find common ground and agree on something? It's extremely hard. People are so selfish nowadays. There were before, by the way. But nowadays, with all the technology, with all the internet, social media, all public stuff that's happening in America nowadays and in the world, it's hard to get 2 people together and agree on one idea. So in church, we need to be flexible and listen to each other. Okay, a couple more things here. Ability to listen to your counterpart, ability to put others above yourself, and ability to offer alternative. Sometimes you hear from church leaders or from worship group leader or from choir director, we should not do this. So alternative. What we can do better or what we can do instead. Like, you talk to your son, for example, or somebody, maybe your friend, and you say, you shouldn't do this. But show alternative. Show the other path. Don't just say, no, we will not sing Hillsong music at our church. Explain why. What's the gospel stance behind the Hillsong music? Why it's dangerous. Don't just say no. They will listen to it. I promise they will. Okay, how to balance? How to balance with God, with church, with common trends, with war in Ukraine, right? It changed the world. For last year, it changed the world. It's a new world order now. It's completely new situation, guys. So let's talk about this. Building positive, strong relationships with God. Are you actually involved in that? Or are you lacking that ability nowadays? Or are you thinking about that? Number 2, pray purposefully about the quality of your ministry. Are you praying for that? Or are you just doing this because you have to? Or you're obligated to serve the God? Does that make sense? So be thinking about this super hard. Okay, a couple more things. And we have a break, okay? When I talk to conductors, I say, guys, learn how to communicate with the church leaders and those to whom we serve. Be able to communicate. Nowadays, like older generation cannot properly communicate with you guys, right? And sometimes we as young people, we cannot communicate properly with older people. There is a disconnection there. Did you notice that, churches? A lot. So we need to learn how to properly communicate and listen to each other. That's why I said, I wish everybody is sitting right here. All the churches can listen to that. We need to break those bad habits of not listening to each other and not offering alternative ways. Does that make sense? Or rethinking stuff. Am I talking too hard on you, or you feel you good? You think it's right? Yes? Feedback? Yes? Okay. Because you're so serious right now. I felt we need to sing a song or something to get you right now. Okay, also, if anybody here, like piano players or conductors maybe, please pray for a substitute. Because one day you get older and somebody will take your spot. I know, why I have to talk about that? I have only young people in here. However, life is life, and I'm telling you, I was 20 years old, 16 years to go. Now I'm so 27, whatever. 35, 36. However, I'm still thinking, okay, my life like halfway through now. So one day I have to give my responsibility of choir to somebody after me. I shouldn't hold the horses all the time and say, I'm leading the way. No. So think about this. Everything you do in church, pray for that person who can substitute you. Even when you're absent or sick or you traveling, right, you're not in church, have those people, have those helpers who are supposed to be within the team mode, right? You know that the biggest businesses in the world, like Amazon, right? What else? eBay, started from team, 2 people helping each other. Does that make sense? When you're by yourself, you cannot do anything. When the team works together, you can do lots of big stuff. Okay, there's a break for you right now. Do you need 30 minutes or 20 minutes will be enough? You need 30 minutes? Okay, let's meet here at 5:10. I mean, my bad, 4:10. Am I right on time? Yes, 4:10. And we start our final, the most exciting seminar about our brain and how music affects us in general. Are you ready for it? Okay. Let's pray real quick, and I'll give you some time to go ahead and drink some coffee, go to the bathroom if you need, stuff like that. Okay. Господи, слава Тебе, благодарность за то, что Ты даешь нам еще силы, даешь терпение, Господь, и благословляешь молодежь, Господь, которая сегодня пришла, подростки, Господь, и старшее поколение здесь. Слава Тебе за это. Благослови нас, чтобы вот на остаток этого вечера, этот последний семинар, который еще будет звучать, чтобы мы имели еще силы, чтобы наш мозг еще смог воспринимать ту информацию, которую мы будем слышать. Благослови нас. Благослови также пищу, которую будем кушать сейчас на этом коротком бреке. А Тебе за все да будет слава и хвала. Аминь. Okay, I'll see you all.